I'd like to call to order the Plan Zone Commission meeting for tonight, November 1st. I'd like to ask everybody in the audience to please have their phones turned off or silenced so it doesn't interfere with our audio. Everybody here will have an opportunity to speak, both in the public hearing and the regular meeting agenda. Try to limit your conversation to 3 to 5 minutes and try not to repeat what other people have said. Address any of your questions to the commission. We will get started with our public hearing. Commissioner Tallman, roll call please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Schneider?
Present.
Eichelberry?
Present.
Johnson?
Here.
Tallman here. Ingram?
Present.
Hepner?
Here.
Bransgard?
Excused.
Excused, thank you. Reinhardt?
Here.
Manus?
Here.
Garrington?
Here.
And Stelk?
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Tallman. First case is case REZ 22-07 is a request of High Properties on behalf of Shamrock Properties LC to rezone approximately 104.57 acres of land bounded by Veterans Memorial Parkway, Eastern Avenue, Interstate 80, and Jersey Ridge Road from S-AG Agricultural District to R1 Single Family Residential District of 33 acres, R4 Single Family and 2 Family Residential District, 20 acres, R-MF Multifamily Residential District for 35 acres, and C2 Corridor Commercial District for 16 acres. Matt or Scott?
Sure. So the subject site consists of approximately 105 acres of land. It's located just south of Interstate 80 to the west of Jersey Ridge Road. It does consist of both the land north of Veterans Memorial Parkway and that south of Veterans Memorial Parkway. And then it's bounded on the west side by Eastern Avenue. It is located just north of that utility substation along Eastern Avenue for that southern boundary. Pheasant Creek does flow through the subject site, so there is some floodplain which would restrict some development on the property. So the property is currently zoned under an agricultural zoning district, both north and south of Veterans Memorial Parkway. You notice on that northwest portion of the property, there is a 3-acre lot with a single family home that's under a different ownership and is not part of this request. Directly to the east is R1, which is single family residential. So that's the city's lowest density of housing, as well as directly south of Veterans Memorial Parkway. Cromwell Circle is also zoned R1, so low density. And then directly to the west is Commercial Office Park. So that's that land currently undeveloped. Just to the west of the subject site. Site's currently being used for agriculture and farming. Future land use identifies this property as residential general. The portions of Pheasant Creek and some of that adjacent floodway is under an open space and public land designation. This is consistent with all the land south of Interstate 80. So this is the zoning exhibit prepared by the applicant showing the boundaries of the proposed zoning district. So starting on the east portion, so east of Pheasant Creek would be R1, which is single family residential. That'll consist of approximately 33 acres. So that's our low density housing district. To the north is R4, which is single family and 2 family residential district. That's smaller lots, a little bit more moderate in density. At the center of the site, the applicant's proposing 35 acres of RMF, so that's multifamily residential. And then south of Veterans Memorial Parkway would be C2 Corridor Commercial District, comprising 16 acres of land. So this is the concept plan that's been submitted by the applicant showing how this property and site may ultimately get developed. The intent is really to establish a mixed-use development in this portion of the city, having larger lots to the east of Pheasant Creek, some of those smaller single-family residential to the north, with a variety of different multifamily consisting of apartment, condo, and townhomes at the center, and then doing a mix of commercial development south of Veterans Memorial Parkway. Please note, though, that this is a concept plan, so this is being shown for reference. So things such as building footprints, the street network, access points, detention ponds, those will be worked out during the planning process. So in terms of purpose statements, the R1 district, it's really the city's lowest density single-family neighborhoods, which consist of large lots and generous yards. The R4 single-family, two-family residential district, petitioned for 20 acres of land. That's really for neighborhoods that are a little bit more dense than urban development, but still that single and two-family housing type. The RMF district at the center of the property, so that's high-density neighborhoods, which encourage a mixture of housing types. This is your single-family semi-detached, your two-family townhomes, and then multifamily residential. And then south is being proposed for corridor commercial district of 16 acres. That's really for to encourage mixed-use development that accommodates automobiles as well as creating pedestrian links to nearby areas. So in terms of public input, the petitioner held a neighborhood meeting on May 10th. Property owners within 200 feet were notified of that meeting. City staff were not in attendance at that one. They held a subsequent neighborhood meeting a month later in June. The notification boundary was expanded to 800 feet. So city ordinance requires 200 feet. Staff considered the area and the size of this development, so we expanded that boundary. City staff and elected officials were in attendance at that meeting to interact with the public. And then based on feedback, the applicant did revise their concept plan to take into consideration some of the comments made at those two neighborhood meetings. For tonight, notices were sent to owners within 800 feet of the property, notifying them of the public hearing. And a notice was also published in the Quad City Times. To date, staff have received a few written comments from abutting property owners. Concerns that have been raised have been traffic, access points to the development, and buffering, as well as comments on density and land use. So the intent of tonight is to hold the public hearing, and then staff will provide a formal recommendation at the November 15th Plan and Zone Commission, when this body will make a recommendation to City Council.
Thank you, Matt. Commissioner Tallman has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Matt, I know you guys haven't completed your internal review on this yet, but would you anticipate with the variety of zoning districts that this will go through the Comprehensive Plan Committee to update the land use plan? I guess to reflect what the request is, what's happening here?
Potentially, that's something that we'll look into. So it is shown as residential general. And I forgot to point out there is a commercial node shown at the corner of Eastern Avenue and Veterans, identifying that intersection for some light commercial development.
All right, I thought there was, so, okay, thank you.
Matt, was there an intention, at least in the meetings I was involved with, to have access to this property off of Eastern? I didn't notice that in the overview.
Yes, that has been ongoing conversation with the applicant to provide some sort of access to the development through the intersection of Eastern Avenue and Veterans Memorial Parkway. There is right-of-way easement located there, so that'll be worked out either through zoning conditions or through the planning process.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Commissioners, any other questions at this time prior to the petitioners stepping forward? Seeing none, would the petitioner like to step forward and explain their project?
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission, Darrell High Properties, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. With me, I have Brian Duffy. I have two Brians. Brian Duffy, who's the owner of Shamrock Properties and the owner of the property, and then Brian Belk, who's the principal on Axiom Consultants, who are our civil engineer. As Matt indicated, we have had a couple of public hearings, and I'm sure we're going to hear some more from the public tonight. We've tried to make some adjustments based on the input that we had from the public.
Can I correct what you said? You've had a couple of public meetings,
I'm
not
sorry,
public hearings.
neighborhood meetings, I'm sorry,
I just
Chair.
want to make sure we're on the same page.
I'm sorry, we've had a couple of neighborhood meetings. We had about 40 people at the first one, and I would estimate maybe a few less than that at the second one. And so, yes, we look forward to the comments tonight. We will be here to answer any questions, and, I mean, I can answer any questions that the commission has now, or I can wait until after the public comment.
Thank you. Did any of your Brians like to speak at this time? Appears not. Commissioners, any questions at this point? Commissioner Reinhardt, gotta press the right button there, bud. You're good now.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions since it's a concept plan.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any feel for what type of, what the volume of homes is going to be on the R1 and the R4?
So in the R1 single family, which would be the eastern edge of the development, we have 33 lots shown there.
Okay, I didn't want to count and assume that since it's a concept plan, that was all.
Right, and then in the to the north against 80, we have 55 lots there.
All right, thank you.
And we, if I may,
Yeah,
we anticipate that the lots, the 55 will be very similar to the homes that we're building over in the Prairie Heights development that we just put in the streets over there.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. Any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Now I'll take comments from the audience. First, we'll start off with anybody in favor of this petition. Please step forward and indicate your name and address. Final call. Seeing none, we'll move over to anybody in opposition that would like to speak at this time. Please step forward.
My name is Tom Jacobson. I'm a resident of the 6th Ward and live at 6436 Woodland Court, which is about a stone's throw here from the intersection. I wouldn't say we're opposed to it, if I have to pick one or the other. Just looking at the concept plan, understanding it's a concept plan, I think these issues may have come up, but one point being the area immediately south of Veterans as a commercial corridor does immediately adjacent to our existing R1 zoning. So there's no transition for those people from the R1 zoning to the commercial corridor. And the second point is, again, I understand the concept plan, but if you look at the concept plan that's in the packet, there's actually 5 cuts in Veterans between the roundabout and Eastern Avenue. And certainly would like to hope that maybe that traffic could be routed over to extension on Eastern, either on the north side or the south side, because and have that traffic flow coming from the roundabout, going eastbound or westbound on Veterans, heading up to the roundabout. Roundabout actually works pretty good, but would kind of be a traffic mismatch. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in opposition?
Kathy DeBluff, I live at 6900 Jersey Ridge Road. I would have to agree with Mr. Jacobson that I'm not necessarily opposed to the whole plan. I did send an email with my concerns, and my concerns relate primarily to the access off of Veterans Memorial Parkway. I can't imagine trying to pull out of that development and making a turn onto Veterans. Traffic coming from the east is coming at a pretty good rate of speed, and there's not a clear line of sight there because of the topography of the corner lot. So that would be a concern. Maybe there's a way to do an access onto Veterans, but I don't see how there could be one so close to that intersection of the current roundabout. That would be probably my primary concern. The second one is during the preliminary meetings that we had, we talked about our concerns on the commercial property part of it. And, like I said, I live on Jersey Ridge, so I'm not close to where the proposed commercial is. But I will be able to see that from my bathroom window, my bedroom window, my sunroom. And I really don't want to see bright lighting, a gas station type of environment. It's a residential area all around there. I would prefer not to see the commercial, at least not that type of commercial. We did discuss it at the preliminary meetings. They offered possible solutions of being office buildings, medical office buildings, assisted living. I think something like that would be appropriate, but gas stations and convenience stores, we have plenty of those on 53rd Street and Brady and Jersey Ridge. We just don't need more of those in that particular area. An item I thought of on my way over here tonight, this additional traffic load on veterans also brings up concerns for the intersection of veterans and Brady or the Thunder Bay area there, especially when Von Maur lets out. I mean, if any of you go that way, you already know that the traffic backs up quite a ways trying to get to Brady. I don't know. This is only going to make it worse, I think. So I don't know what the plans are for that intersection in the future. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Final call.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Mark Martinez. I live at 2140 Cromwell Circle, which kind of backs up to the commercial property. Basically right up there where that C1 building is going to be built. Attended some of the other meetings that we had on this. I do want to thank the developer. They did make some substantial changes. They moved the main apartment complexes across the street because, again, I think our concern was coming from an R1 into that commercial area. If they're going to have those apartment complexes there, and they could be 3 to 4 stories high, that would literally be looking into our backyard, in our backyard, and our back windows there. So they made some adjustments. They moved it across there. So we do appreciate them taking that into account for what we did. Main concern, again, living in Cromwell Circle area is that commercial area. I guess one concern I have would be it's a concept plan. The way it looks right now, it looks halfway decent. I'd be concerned that if that's what's proposed, that's not exactly what's going to be built there. Concerned about how high the building structures are going to be, if they're going to be above two stories or not. And you know, going back to what they talked about, the lighting and gas stations and things of that nature. Because one thing that doesn't show very well is that location south of Veterans is kind of elevated, and then there's a huge dip. So all the trees there, you can put in as many trees as you want there. It's not going to cover it up because it's elevated, and our houses are elevated, and there's a valley that runs right through there. So anything you put there, if you put a 2-story structure or a 3-story structure, they can pretty much, you'll be at eye level with our house all the way through, and there's nothing you can really do for trees because it's about a 40, 50 foot change in elevation right there. So that's one of the issues. I think you've already heard some of the issues with traffic. You know, our teenage daughters, they drive through there all the time to go through school. It's already very difficult to maneuver through there with the traffic it has right now. You start adding in that many housing units. That traffic circle, people are learning to manage it, but with all these additional houses here, and again, like they talked about that Brady Street entrance, I know that's not part of the development here, but that's already a mess during certain times of the day. And that's my main concern. Again, going back to the lighting, you know, having down lighting as opposed to having bright lights, you know, because you're going to have commercial properties, they're going to want to light up the back area for safety purposes and things of that nature. All that's going to be kind of shining right into our backyard. And that's pretty much all I had. And again, like they also said, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I know something's going to go there. We just hope that when it's built, it's built with you know, the rest of the community in mind. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any additional comments?
Hi, my name is Mary Meehan. I live at 1820 Cromwell Circle. And I'm going to echo some of the comments that I heard about, making more of a gradual change from R1 to commercial. I live on the other side of Cromwell Circle, and I will tell you that our history with the developers on that side were very agreeable to doing that very thing. So that originally they were going to put, houses on 5,000 square foot lots that were bordering houses that were on 40,000 square feet lots. So in order to make that more gradual, all of the houses that were immediately to that boundary have larger lots. So it was an agreement for us to have more of a gradual change from R1 to the more commercial. And I think that kept everybody happy. And I think the other thing it does is it recognizes the fact that those houses have been there for 25 years. And so it recognizes the fact that they've had that investment for a long time. Thanks.
Thank you. Any additional thoughts or comments?
Hi, my name is Scott Pearson. I'm a general contractor and I live at 6516 Woodland Court. And been to a number of zoning committees and meetings back in the 90s and even 2000s with Steve Schock and some of the developments we built in dozens of areas. 53rd, worked with Steve Fry back in the early 90s, putting together 53rd Street and 18th Street and built over 40 to 50 homes in that area. I don't oppose of the subdivision, but when you've got 7 lanes of traffic trying to go from north to south or east to west across Veterans, once you put in turn lanes, you're gonna have 7 lanes to cross. And there's no controlled intersections between Jersey and Eastern. The other thing with the C1 being commercial, again, it's the height and also lighting. Right now with the commercial buildings north of 53rd behind Quick Star, you've got some businesses that have had lights that are on their parking lamps, their parking lights for the parking lots, and shining straight north. I built a home on 58th Street, and it was a nuisance with those lights going over the top of those buildings into all those backyards. So the lighting issue, even being in their backyard, is a very big issue in the height. The other thing was that nobody's ever brought up is the setback. I know that setbacks can be changed, and I know that there are ordinances for certain limits and their setbacks, but putting a 2- and 3-story building 25 or 30 feet off of the setback where those apartment buildings at is going to tower over the top of Veterans Memorial. I was in a meeting with, I was asked to come to a meeting with Bettendorf City Council and Zoning, and they changed that to a staggered height. As you got further away from the major corridors, which Veterans Memorial is, then the homes, not the homes, the townhomes and commercial buildings could start getting taller. If you're 200, 300 feet away from the street, maybe you go to 3 stories. But if you're at 200, you're limited at 200 or 2 stories. So it's a gradual incline off of your major corridor, so you don't have these buildings towering over the top of Veterans. Living in an apartment with my deck to Veterans, I wouldn't want the noise. Put the parking lots in front, put the buildings behind that so you can dress those up with the trees and get a buffer between Veterans and all that. But again, with the 5 curb cuts, don't know what you're going to do with the residential and down there at the bottom of the hill, but I just drove here from my subdivision and you can't see, there's no visual distance to see left and right at that middle cross section. You can't see west because of the hill. And people go through the slingshot at Veterans and Jersey Ridge, and people, We sit in our backyard. We listen to the motorcycles and the vets and the rest of the trucks fly through there when they go through the roundabout. They got a 25-mile or 20-mile-an-hour head start, and then they gun it. And they just fly up and go west on veterans. So the stoplights, yes, they can still run those. The turnabouts, yes, they can slow down and get around those things. But the curb cuts with 7 lanes of traffic, I'm including the turn lanes. You got the center lane, then you've got turn lanes on both sides. So that's 7 lanes to try to get across there, and you don't have line of sight either way.
Thank you. Any additional?
I'm Brenda Golnitz. We live at 7219 Eastern Avenue. There in the corner where this development is being proposed to come around our property.
I need to ask you to speak up a little more, please.
Just general questions and a lot of what's already been said. But we've lived out there for 28 years and seen it all. Seen all this development happen. But Veterans Memorial is a highway. We know it, and I also call it the 911 highway. It is so highly utilized. Fire trucks, ambulance, fast. And then the rip-roaring motorcycles, the teenagers out there racing. It's dangerous. I fear every night at that intersection for the stoplight, just watch and see how many are going to go through the red light before I begin to try to come out of my property. The other thing I wanted to mention that you may not have considered too is just over, like where Von Mar is, and the Holiday Inn and Cracker Barrel, the semis backed across there and block all of Veterans. Just happened the other night. Somebody came off a Brady and about hit them because they came too fast. They back in. Hopefully you get caught by that. They back in, and they block all of Veterans in order to do that, to go into that Holiday Inn. Just last week, there was a semi in my front yard, misdirected, lost, had to call 911. They called it on themselves. It tore up my front yard. She thought she was going to Cracker Barrel. Missed it. I know it's not supposed to be semi-traffic, but semis are there. They're supposed to stay to the east, or excuse me, they're supposed to stay to the west. I'm concerned about the need for a frontage road. This all goes through. Absolutely no access onto Veterans. I believe that would be unsafe. Definitely frontage roads. Speed patrols or breakers. I'm worried for the safety of children, and I'm very worried about the safety of bicyclists. It's a designated biking route, and just the speed and the amount of traffic going to be handled out there. Very concerned for the safety of anybody. So in addition to whatever what the other concerns that the other people have said about the heights and the lights and all that, my final concern is that there's no street lighting along the roads other than the intersections. And it is very bleak, especially in the fog. And at night, the fog is just dark. It's dangerous. It's dangerous now, and I hope that as they, in this development plan, that there's significant lighting to be added out there for the roads in new construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call for comments. Commissioners, any questions at this time? Final call for anybody in the audience. Seeing none, we will close case REZ 22-07. Staff will bring it back to us on November 15th for our meeting here. Same time, same location. At that time, we expect a recommendation from staff. Move on to case ROW 22-05, request of Corn Belt Capital LLC to vacate unimproved right-of-way located south of Research Parkway and to the west of Interstate 80 Airport Industrial Park, 12th edition. Matt?
Thank you. So the subject right-of-way is currently unimproved. It's located just south of Research Parkway and then over to the east of Hillendale Road. So it's directly in between Sadler, the business Sadler, a vacant field, and then Romer Machine. So the purpose of the request is to vacate the entirety of this L-shape, or I guess backwards L-shape right-of-way to better facilitate development south of those developable parcels south, and then the city would immediately upon dedication, the city immediately upon vacating would dedicate new public right-of-way, which would serve as a north-south road ending in a cul-de-sac. So this part of the city, it's zoned light industrial, and it's also shown as industry on our future land use map. So the right-of-way vacation process, it's 2 steps. One is to determine whether the right-of-way is needed for public purposes, and then the second would be to negotiate the terms of conveyance to adjacent property owners. This is handled with the city's legal department and the abutting property owners, so no plan and zone commission actions needed for that portion of this process. Public notices were sent to abutting property owners within 200 feet, notifying them of tonight's public hearing. We also published in the Quad City Times, and to date, staff have not received any written comments from abutting property owners. So tonight, the purpose is to hold the public hearing, and then staff will provide a recommendation at the November 15th meeting.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions at this time from the commission? Seeing none, the petitioner would like to step forward.
My name is Ryan Hintz with Cornwall Capital. The purpose of this vacation is I have a 5.6 acre lot under contract right now, which is just to the north of the property. Yeah, it's just south of Sadler.
I'm gonna need to have you over here so the microphone can pick this up.
Sure, I can point to
Yeah,
that one.
just to, yeah, right there. So I have that under contract set to close on the 16th of this month. But the vacation of this property just makes sense because it used to be an old farm road and it just didn't get captured in the GDRC industrial plan. So it only makes sense to vacate that and then I'll rezone that 5.6 acres and take that in my land. So that's all I got.
Commissioners, any questions of the petitioner? Here's no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Final call for questions before I open it up to the audience. Seeing none, would anybody in the audience like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to this petition? Seeing none, commission? Also seeing none, we will close case ROW 22-05, and it too will return to us on November 15th from staff for our process. That will conclude the public hearing. We'll move on to roll call, the regular meeting agenda. Commissioner Tallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Schneider?
Present.
Eichelberry?
Present.
Johnson?
Here.
Tallman here. Ingram?
Present.
Hefner?
Here.
Transcards excused. Reinhardt?
Here.
Manus?
Here.
Garrington?
Present.
Stulk? We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Tallman. Report of city council activity.
Case REZ 2205, that's the Forest Grove and Utica rezoning, is moved to second consideration at City Council. That's my only update.
Thank you. Secretary's report.
Move the report.
Secretary's report's been moved and seconded as printed. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It will remain as printed. Report of comp plan. Anything, Matt?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Zoning activity, we have one new business, case ORD 22-01, Commissioner Eichelberry.
Yes, tonight we have case ORD 22-01, request of RY Holdings LLC to amend Table 17.08-1, use matrix of the City of Davenport zoning ordinance to allow dwelling, single-family as permitted use in the R-MF multifamily residential zoning district. The city staff has some recommendations regarding this to be forwarded to City Council with a couple of findings, and I so move.
Second.
Thank you. Case ORD 22-01 has been moved and seconded for discussion. Matt?
So this is the request of a private property owner to add the use dwelling single family as a permitted use within our RMF multifamily residential district. So keep in mind, if approved, this would apply to all properties zoned multifamily. So the purpose of the multifamily residential district is really meant to accommodate high-density neighborhoods within the city. It allows for really a mixture of housing types, which are single-family semi-detached, two-family, townhomes, and then multifamily. So if approved and permitted in the RMF district, this would really enable a true mix of every type of housing within the city. So single-family dwellings are really defined as one dwelling unit on a single lot. That table below shows all of our zoning districts where single-family is permitted. So it's allowed in all of our residential districts, R1 through R4, currently not allowed in multifamily. However, it is allowed in our commercial transitional, neighborhood commercial, and corridor commercial districts, as well as the Village of East Davenport zoning district. So with permitting single family within the multifamily residential district, staff is proposing district dimensional standards that will apply to single family homes. We've borrowed the requirements from the R4C district, which is Davenport's densest single family residential district. So in terms of minimum lot area, we're recommending 4,000 square feet per lot. Really, the intention is to keep this district at a higher density than some of the other neighborhoods within the city. Minimum lot width, 40 feet. So that's what the minimum lot width of single family is in R4C. Maximum building height, 35 feet, which is consistent with our single family and two family homes throughout the city. Maximum building coverage, we're recommending 50%, which is consistent with single family semi-detached and two family in the multifamily residential district. And then our building setbacks will also be consistent with the RMF district, which is 25-foot front yards, 5-foot side yards for single family, 20-foot corner, 25-foot reverse corner, and then 25 feet or 20% of the lot depth, whichever is less, for rear yard setbacks. So with that, staff is recommending the following zoning text amendments and findings be forwarded to City Council with a recommendation for approval. And that would be to amend the following sections in the city code. So that would be table 17.08-1, which is the use matrix, so to allow dwelling single family as a permitted use. Section 17.04.010G, to include single family dwellings under the purpose statement for the RMF district. And then 3, to amend table 17.04-1, which was on that previous slide, outlining the district dimensional standards for single family dwellings in the RMF district. So in terms of findings, the proposed amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan and adopted land use policies. The proposed amendment promotes public health, safety, and welfare. It's also consistent with the intent and general regulations of this ordinance. And the proposed amendment does reduce existing nonconformities. So prior to the code update in 2019, single family was a permitted use in the RMF district. When the code was rewritten, that was taken out. So we still do have quite a few neighborhoods within the city that are zoned for RMF, but they are single family homes. So these would make those properties conforming should this be adopted.
Thank you, Matt. Commissioners, any questions at this time? Commissioner Johnson.
Thanks. I'm not sure. I guess I'm just kind of curious about the history, and I don't, Why not?
I believe at the time when it was done, the intention was to keep our high-density residential districts reserved for a greater intensity of housing units. Can't really speak to what happened before.
Staff does concur that it's a great benefit to the city and to its residents to have properties that are conforming rather than non-conforming. It helps people get mortgages a lot easier than what it is right now.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Manus.
I just wanted to ask, is there a drawback to this change? Are you expecting that we will see areas that we hope to develop for multifamily now may be going to single family and not getting that kind of density that we need?
There could be potential. Obviously, that'd be handled on a case-by-case basis. If it's a rezoning, we could impose conditions to prevent that from happening, but it just allows more flexibility on the development side to encourage a mixture of housing types within one neighborhood or one development.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Garrington.
I have a question about the minimum of 4,000 square feet. How do we come up with that? Normally it's 7 or 10,000 square feet, and that seems like a pretty small area for a single-family house. How do we come up with 4,000 for minimum?
Sure, so that was borrowed from our R-4C district, which is a single and two-family central residential district. So those are lots that are closest to the core of the city. So we just carried over that standard from the R4C into the multifamily residential.
There's no maximum, though?
No.
You could have a 10,000 square foot piece of property. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Garrington. At this time, I see no more questions. Would the petitioner like to step forward, explain their petition?
Scott Ryder, represent RY Holdings. I don't know if I have anything to add. I mean, we talked a couple weeks ago. We're just trying to make the best use of this property to match the housing that's around it. So the housing around it is the single-family detached small lots, and we're just, I think it makes more sense than multifamily.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, have any questions of the petitioner? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody in the audience like to speak either in favor or in opposition of this petition? Final call for questions. Seeing none, roll call please. Commissioner Tolman.
Schneider,
Yes.
Eichelberry,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Tallman, yes. Hepner,
Yes.
Reinhardt,
Yes.
Manus,
Yes.
Garrington,
Yes.
and Stelk.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Tallman. That would conclude the zoning activity. Thank you, Commissioner Eichelberry. We have no subdivision activity tonight. Are there any future business or communications?
So both public hearings tonight will be back at the 15th meeting with a recommendation and then a vote. And then we do have a plat coming up at the November 15th meeting as well.
Thank you, Matt. Any additional thoughts from the commission? Seeing none?
Move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor of adjournment, signify by aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, we are officially adjourned. Thank you for your attendance.